The film begins with Tom Carter, a former Marine, who has now turned into a bank robber. Tom has a knack for breaking into banks and is renowned for his precision and neatness, leaving no trace behind. Despite his unlawful profession, he is a reliable and skillful robber. The following day, Tom visits a company that offers warehouses for rent. There, he meets Annie Wilkins, a company employee with whom he develops a romantic interest. His intention is to rent a warehouse to stash all the cash he has robbed from the banks. However, fate has something else in store for him as he begins to fall for Annie, and they both start to know each other better. A year later, Tom and Annie are in a committed relationship, and he takes her to their new house to begin their life together. However, he still hasn't told Annie about his life as a bank robber, despite their plans to get married. The story then shifts to Detective Sean Mayers, who has been working on a bank robbery case for the past year that was carried out by none other than Tom. Despite his and his partner, Samuel Baker's, reputation for never failing a mission, they have been unable to catch the culprit. Meanwhile, Tom has been staying in a hotel, planning to turn himself in for his crimes. He contacts the FBI office and speaks to Sean and Samuel, coincidentally. There, he admits to being the bank robber they have been searching for, revealing his name as Tom Carter and confessing to stealing $9 million so far. He assures them that he has not spent any of the money and is willing to return it all. However, Sean and Samuel are skeptical and ask him why he has decided to surrender now. Shortly after, Tom revealed that he wanted to leave his criminal life behind after falling in love with Annie, whom he intended to marry. He hoped to make amends for his past wrongdoings before tying the knot with her. Hearing that, Samuel was intrigued by his confession and asked for his address. Then, Samuel dispatched John and Ramon to verify Tom's claims while he made his way to Tom. After a few hours, Tom was waiting for Samuel to arrive when there was a knock on the door. However, it was just the hotel maid. He contacted the FBI again, this time speaking with Sean, and expressed his disappointment that the FBI hadn't shown up yet. Sean informed him that 2 of his men were on their way to his location. Not long after, John and Ramon arrived and were initially skeptical of Tom's confession, believing that no criminal would turn themselves in willingly. To convince them, he gave them the key to the warehouse where he had stored the stolen money. Then, they decided to check out the warehouse while Tom waited at the hotel. As John and Ramon arrived at the warehouse, they were taken aback by the amount of money they found from Tom's robbery. John, with his greed taking over, decided to keep all the money to himself and not turn it over to the authorities. Ramon warned him about the consequences of such actions, but he was determined to keep the loot and even had a plan to cover their tracks. There, Ramon reluctantly agreed to go along with his scheme. As they were loading the boxes into the trunk of their car, Annie showed up, having seen everything through the CCTV in her office. John quickly came up with a story to convince her that they were just following Tom's orders as his friends. She seemed to buy their story, and she left without further questions. John then took Ramon to an empty house to stash the money, ensuring its safety. On the other hand, Sean was concerned about the whereabouts of John and Ramon, so he asked Samuel if they had visited Tom yet. Samuel, also curious, decided to go check on Tom as he feared for his men's safety. Upon arriving at the hotel, Tom was still waiting in his room. However, John and Ramon soon returned, and John pointed a gun at him, intending to kill him. Realizing the danger he was in, he revealed that he only had $3 million from the warehouse robbery, keeping the rest in a different location. Hearing that, Ramon seemed eager to go along with John's plan, but John insisted on finding the rest of the money and even forced Tom to reveal its location. In the midst of the heated argument, Samuel suddenly appeared, but John, fearing that his plan would be exposed, brutally murdered him. As the chaos unfolded, Tom managed to escape by jumping out of the hotel window. He also took Ramon's weapon and fled with Annie, who was on her way to meet him. As Tom ran for his life, John and Ramon chased him relentlessly. Annie, who was with Tom, asked him what was going on, but he only promised to explain later. Meanwhile, Ramon expressed his disappointment in John's brutal actions towards Samuel, but John planned to frame Tom for the murder. The chase continued until they reached the parking lot on the upper floor of a building. Luckily, Tom and Annie managed to escape by hiding in another car. They then drove to safety, and he revealed everything that had happened. Tom confessed that he was a former bank robber who was once on the FBI's most wanted list. However, after meeting Annie, he realized that his actions were wrong and intended to return the stolen money. Sadly, he was betrayed by John and Ramon, and that was how he ended up in this dangerous situation. Tom also revealed the reasons that led him to a life of crime, despite being a former mariner. So, a decade ago, Tom was sent to fight in Afghanistan, but his return to the US was met with sorrowful news. His mother had passed away, and his father was gravely ill. With no funds to cover his father's medical treatment, Tom turned to the factory where his father had worked for over 40 years, hoping to claim his rightful severance pay. However, he was met with a harsh reality: the factory leader had stolen the money and deposited it in a bank in the town center. Determined to avenge his father's loss, Tom made the difficult decision to leave the military and plot his revenge against the corrupt factory leader. His plan was simple: rob the bank to take back the money that was rightfully his father's. And that's exactly what he did. Though it was a risky move, he succeeded in his mission, and he never touched a single penny from the robbery. Back to the present, as Sean visits the location where Samuel was shot dead, he's filled with sadness and vows to bring the perpetrators to justice. Shortly after, John and Ramon visit Sean with a deceitful tale that Tom was responsible for Samuel's death. They claim to have chased him, but he managed to escape. Meanwhile, Tom is on a trip with Annie and tells her to leave town while he handles the situation. The next day, he sets out to gather information on John and Ramon, while Sean learns that Tom is a former marine explosives expert and that Annie is his closest associate. Then, Tom contacts Annie to find out where she is, but he's shocked to learn that she's returned to her office to retrieve CCTV footage of John and Ramon stealing money from him. Hearing that, he orders her to leave immediately as he knows that John and Ramon are after her. As Annie left the office, she encountered John, who was already in his office. He demanded that she hand over the CCTV footage, threatening to kill her if she refused. Refusing to give up so easily, she attempted to flee. Meanwhile, Ramon, who heard the commotion, quickly came to her aid and entered the office with John. Shocked to find her unconscious and at gunpoint, he disagreed with John's actions and intervened. Despite John's insistence on shooting Annie, Ramon cleverly told him that she was already dead, preventing a fatal outcome. John, believing that she had fainted, instructed Ramon to leave her alone. On the other hand, Tom had a bad feeling and rushed to Annie's office, only to find her unconscious and barely breathing. Outraged, he took her to the hospital and demanded the best possible care for her. Meanwhile, he planned to hunt down Ramon and John. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Tom contacted Sean and asked him to connect his phone line to John's. Then, he confronted John about stealing his money and questioned why he would do such heinous things, even though he was willing to surrender the stolen money. He also accused John of injuring Annie in order to obtain the CCTV footage. Sean was shocked by what he heard but remained skeptical of his intentions. Unfazed, Tom threatened to go to John's house and take matters into his own hands. Shortly after, Tom realized that John and Ramon were tailing him and intentionally caused John's car to crash into his own. Seeking a confrontation, Tom deliberately appeared in front of Sean and goaded him into a fight. In the end, Tom managed to gain the upper hand but had no intention of killing Sean. Instead, he revealed to Sean that John was the real criminal behind the theft of $3 million, as well as the murder of Samuel. He also disclosed that John had attempted to kill Annie in order to cover up the theft. He expressed his lack of faith in law enforcement and vowed to handle things on his own. Soon after, Tom handed over a gun to Sean before leaving. It was the same gun he had taken from Ramon earlier. Then, Sean inspected the gun and saw that it had never been fired before, which made him trust Tom more and suspect Ramon and John. Later that evening, John and Ramon were seen in the hospital parking lot. John had planned to kill Annie, but Ramon refused to participate, so he went alone. Then, Sean kept watch over Annie, suspecting that John would come for her. The following day, Sean summoned John and Ramon to his office. He accused John of stealing Tom's money and killing Samuel, but he denied everything and blamed Tom instead. Afterward, Sean also gave Ramon the gun that Tom had given him earlier. However, he lacked strong evidence to accuse either of them. On the other hand, at night, Ramon was sleeping peacefully beside his wife when he heard an unsettling noise coming from his garage. He rushed to investigate and found Tom waiting for him. At that moment, Tom attacked him, but when he realized that Ramon was a good man, he asked for his help. Hearing that, he agreed to work with Tom and even promised to hand over CCTV footage to Sean. He also warned Tom that John was planning to kill Annie at the hospital. Acting fast, Tom rushed to the hospital and took her to a safe hotel. The next day, Tom was spotted buying explosives, and it was clear he was planning to take matters into his own hands. Then, he contacted Sean and vowed to clean up the mess once and for all. Sean had seen the CCTV footage and urged Tom to seek revenge. He even offered to assist Tom if he needed help. Soon after, Tom assembled the explosives in his hotel hideout while Annie continued to recover. The next day, Tom took Annie to John's house, and as soon as they arrived, he called John and revealed his location. He then blew up John's house, leaving John to barely survive. However, John fled to an empty house where he had hidden his stolen money. Meanwhile, Sean went to the warehouse where Tom had hidden the money he had stolen from the other Tom. Annie was with Sean, and she vouched for Tom's character. Then, she opened one of the warehouses where Tom had kept the $6 million, and Tom agreed to give the money to Sean, trusting him completely. Just as John was planning his escape with the $3 million, Ramon and Tom appeared out of nowhere. There, Tom confronted John and demanded he surrender because Ramon had already given CCTV evidence to Sean. Knowing that, John was furious and killed Ramon, but Tom didn't back down and engaged in a fierce gunfight. Regrettably, John managed to escape with a large sum of money. However, Tom contacted him and threatened to blow up his car by planting a bomb underneath it. He warned John that he had to stop the car immediately or else the bomb would detonate, killing him. Furthermore, Tom claimed that if John tried to escape by opening the car door, the bomb would explode immediately. As a result, he had no other option but to pull over and wait for the bomb squad to arrive. A few minutes later, the bomb squad arrived on the scene, with Sean also present. He was planning to arrest John, as he had evidence proving John's guilt. The bomb squad checked John's car and discovered that the bomb was a fake. John was devastated to learn that Tom had deceived him and that he would have to face the consequences of his actions. Then, Sean opened the trunk of John's car and confiscated all the stolen money. At the end of the film, a few days after, Sean stumbled upon Tom and Annie in a chance encounter. Sean felt remorse for not trusting him and decided to offer him a position on the FBI team. To his surprise, Tom accepted the offer and showed genuine gratitude for the opportunity. The film ends. The moral lesson of the film is that even the best of people can be pushed to their limits and turn to a life of crime when they are continuously mistreated and marginalized. We must strive to treat everyone with fairness and respect, or we risk pushing them towards desperation and criminal behavior.